Okay then, so a lot of the time when working with dates in JavaScript, whether that be storing them in a database or maybe comparing dates together, it's a lot easier to use timestamps than using date objects directly. So we saw in the last video that we could get a new date object by saying new date and using the date constructor. And if we wanted to get the timestamp from that date, we'd use the getTime method. And if we look at this, it looks like a long number. And this is the number of milliseconds since 12 AM on the 1st of January 1970. So then, if we wanted to compare two dates together, we could compare these two timestamps together to work out the difference in time between them, the difference in milliseconds. Let me do an example. What I'm going to do is say const before and set this equal to a new date object. So now we have two date objects. But at the minute, they're both essentially going to be the same because when we say new date like this, it just creates a date which is now. But I want to create a date which is sometime in the past. Now, to create a date which is not now, and is sometime in the past or sometime in the future instead, what we do is pass in some kind of string in here, and then that is going to create that date object based on that string. Now that string can be in several different formats. I'm just going to type one of the formats in here. So I'm saying February the 1st, 2019, 7:30 in the morning. So we're going to see other formats that we can write in here later on, but this is just one of them, and that is going to convert this into a new date object based on this date right here. So what I'm first going to do is now log out as well before, and I'm not going to do get time on it just yet. I'm just going to see what this date looks like. And we can see right here, Friday, Feb the 1st, 2019, 7:30. So we get that date. That's absolutely fine. Now let's use the get time method to get the timestamp. So we can see now, this is the number of milliseconds between the 1st of Jan 1970 and now, and this is the number of milliseconds between the 1st of Jan 1970 and the before date. So if we wanted to find out the difference in time between these two dates, what we could do is just subtract this from this, and then we're going to get the difference in milliseconds between those two things. So let me demo this. I'm going to comment this out, and then I'm going to say const diff for difference is equal to now.getTime to get the milliseconds from now, and minus before.getTime to get the milliseconds from before. Now I'm going to log this to the console.log, and we'll log out the difference, save it and preview, and we can see this amount of milliseconds between these two dates. So then, now we have that difference in milliseconds. What we could do is maybe convert these milliseconds into minutes or hours or days between these two dates. For example, we might have a blog on our website and it was created some time ago at this date, and we have a timestamp for that date, which is right here. We also have a timestamp for now, but what we want to do on our website is say, this blog was created maybe 20 days ago or 23 days ago, depending on the date. So we can do that. We can convert the difference in milliseconds that we have here into days, and then we could display that on our web page. So let's do this. Let us now come down here, and I'm going to say const mins is now equal to math.round, and then what we're going to do is pass in the difference in milliseconds, which is this. We're going to divide that by 1000 first of all, because there's 1000 milliseconds in a second, so this is going to get us the amount of seconds. Then I'm going to divide that by 60, and that gets us the amount of minutes. So that is the difference between these two timestamps in minutes. Now I'm going to log this to the console.log, and we'll say mins, save it, and we can see that right here. Okay, so that's the difference in minutes between these two days. Now let's do hours. So let's change this to hours and change this to mins over 60. And what we're doing is dividing the number of minutes we have by 60, because there's 60 minutes in an hour, and that's getting us the amount of hours in between these two things. So let's log that to the console. We'll say hours as well, save and preview, and now we can see this thing right here. That is the difference in hours between these two dates. And finally, let's do the difference in days. So I'll change this to days. Then I'm going to say hours over 24 because there's 24 hours in a day, and this will get us the difference in days between the two dates. Save it, and now we can see there's 47 days between these two dates. So I can now say something like console.log, then I'm going to use a template string, and I'll just say the blog was written, and then we're going to output the number of days, so curly braces and $, then days, and we'll say ago. So if I save it and refresh, we can see the blog was written 47 days ago. So this is something we could potentially output in the browser underneath our blog when we have them. And we do that by getting the timestamp of the blog, which could be stored in a database, and comparing it with the timestamp of now. So that's a good use of timestamps. Now imagine we're storing timestamps in a blog and we get those timestamps back, and we don't necessarily want to do any kind of comparison between dates right here, and instead we just want to take that timestamp and convert it into an actual date object and then do something with that date. Well, we can do that. Let me just do a little comment down here to say converting timestamps into date objects, and then underneath I'm going to say const timestamp is equal to some random number. Now I'm just going to copy this number from my repo so I don't have to write it out again and paste it in, and this looks very much like a timestamp, the number of milliseconds between a certain date and the 1st of Jan 1970. So I get that now, but this timestamp isn't a date object. We can't do things like timestamp and then, get the full year or get the day or anything like that. So we'd have to convert this now into a date object, because at the minute it's just an integer, it's just a number. So the way we do that, and I'm going to log this to the console, is by saying create a new date object and then pass in the timestamp. So when we pass in a number like this into the date object, it converts that timestamp into the date object. So if I save it and look over here, now we can see that full date logged to the console. And now if we stored this in a constant, then we could do things like get the full year or get the day, etc. on that. So there we go, my friends. That is timestamped. It's something we probably will use in a future project or future lessons when we're working with dates.